with this class session, look, the movie's on YouTube. When you get some free time, like in the next, as soon as you can, start watching it. It's an awesome film. If you haven't seen Garbage Warrior already, it's a lot of fun, and it's one of my favorite movies in this class that relates to what we're doing. So, and like I said, it's doing Earthship stuff with Michael Reynolds down in Taos, and it's close to home as well. And it's really just an awesome, awesome movie that applies across the board. So watch that. Watch a half an hour of it. Watch an hour of it. Watch the whole thing. Make your first post. You have to do that. Now, I think a lot of these stay open because if you're going to submit late or just something that is not at all a good piece of effort on your part or work, I'd rather you submit a little late. And so those things will tell us, no, it's the 10th. I'm just preparing people. Yeah, somebody said, is the due discussion due today? It's due Thursday, but we're all staying on top of it. And that's my job to help with that too. So, make sure that you post by Thursday. Make a nice long post about the film. You can talk about how it applies to this chapter or the first couple weeks of this class. We are now on week 3 of this class, and that is how fast the semester is going. Now, that Garbage Warrior isn't due until the 17th. So sometime and on different days over the course of the next week after you make your first post, then reply to other people, a minimum of 2 times. But if you're finding it interesting and replying more, that's just going to make sure that your discussion grade is, a good one. No minimum word count, but it's obvious when somebody takes the time, to take a few minutes, and when somebody just kind of, types a quick sentence for participation. So, be as detailed as possible. Sometimes you're just asking people questions about their point of view or about experience they've had. Some people in this class may have actually gone down to Taos to either stay or around that area or around here. There's Earthships around here too. There's one out by the landfill that was just sold a couple years ago, a lot down in New Mexico, and this particular community of folks down there. Anyway, you might work there. You can work there, or at least up until last spring. You could go down and volunteer your time building Earthships, staying in them, kind of living in that community. Anyway, check it out. Do that discussion. Next, I believe that it's the 14th when your first solution paper is due. And I'm just going to pop back here for a second. And all right, so it's the greenhouse gas solution paper, and it's an essay. It's supposed to be a page long, single spaced in a certain kind of font. There's a rubric here, so that's all filled out for it. And I really don't want, like I said, something too vague, education or more funding or whatever that is. We need at least one outside source that's not the textbook. I want you to be as specific as possible. You don't have to come up with a solution that no one's ever heard of before, but you need to have a good idea and be as detailed as possible. So that is the first piece of writing that you'll do. And then, that'll be graded by the GTA that is assigned to you based on check announcements. I think that might have been made just today. Is that right? Anybody shaking their head yes or no? Yeah, I think that Lawrence made that announcement. And that same person is going to be the one that grades your stuff and reads your stuff all semester long. And I'll be like reading sort of intermittently, but you'll be working really close with them. And you can work closely with me too and have me read your stuff, but that's at least a go-to person. And of course, our GTAs are getting their master's degree and their doctorates, and they write a lot of papers. You think you write a lot of papers? Whew, they write a lot of papers. And so I think they're fantastic resources as well. Okay. All right. So any questions about any of the work that's coming up today? Anything? Nope. All right. Let's see how many people we have. 76 here today. Good. All right. So a heads up as far as the YouTube. Let me see. So the first chapter, episode 1, and I might have those, I might have those reversed. But both videos have, it looks like one has 50 and one has like under 20 views. So those are the lectures you're going to need to watch. And I really think right now, since you've got the paper coming up on the 14th, sit down, take some notes, download the slides ahead of time or whatever helps you, and do that if you can, because since we've got 150 people, make sure that you're watching the video lectures and not just reading the chapters and doing the class sessions. I think are really helpful, but make sure that you're keeping up with those. And I uploaded one over the weekend, and I'm gonna do chapter 2. I think one of those might be mislabeled. I think they're both chapter 1s, just parts 1 and 2, and then I'll get to chapter 2 and upload that today or tomorrow, and then you'll be set for the video lectures as well, all the way through the exam. So when will chapter 2 lecture be posted? Sorry, just simultaneously answered that. So tonight or tomorrow, I'll have it posted. Any questions right now for anybody before we get to the top hat questions? I opened up top hat questions this morning. I even have them open, I think, until 7 p.m. tonight. So, jump on top hat, make sure you answer those. I think pretty much everybody has figured out how to log in and do that. You can still reach out to me through email. I'm not going to answer any top hat questions here anymore since we're in week 3. If you have any concerns about that, just let me know. Send me an email. Okay. All right. So chapter 1, and we've already we're finishing that up right now. I touch a little bit on what environmental sociology is and the bigger sense of the word. And let's see how many trips are made by bike here. I've got on the slides, Netherlands are 27% of the trips. All of their trips are made by bicycle. United States is 1%. So let's see what our class has and how that stacks up and what that looks like. Okay. All right. What percentage of your trips are made by bike? We had 63 people answer. 41 of those people answered 10%, 13, 25%, and then 6 at about 50%. And 75% of your trips made by bike, only 3 people, only 6 people making half of their trips by bike. Now, why did you answer the way that you answered? Chime in, unmute your mic, let me know. Yeah, go ahead. What do you think? Why did you answer the way that you did? Why might Netherlands have 27%, the United States overall only 1%? And what about Fort Collins as a bikeable place, or where you live or where you're from? What do you think?
So in Fort Collins, I've been riding my bike 50%, if not more. But I'm from St. Louis, Missouri, and I never rode my bike anywhere just because public transportation was really crappy and everything was kind of spread out.
Okay, yeah. The spread out piece is a huge one when we're looking at not even other countries, but even within this. Preston, I think urban sprawl in the U.S. is much greater than in most other places. Yeah, certainly a product of geography, right? All right, why else? Did you answer what you answered, or why do you think it's so much more in one country versus the United States?
I think there's a lot of car culture in the United States. Like, it's very cool to drive a car, and it's expected to drive places even if you're not going very far.
Yeah, it's interesting in the United States. When we get to the chapter on transportation, I love it. And we watch a documentary that's like from the 80s. It seems a bit dated, but it's awesome. It's called Taken for a Ride. And it looks at, how car companies and the road industry and gas companies just really kind of make that choice for us. And that's one of the reasons that we look, at sociology. Because at first it would seem, oh, everybody's got cars, everybody chooses that. Well, not necessarily, right? When you incentivize a lot of that behavior that makes driving, a big deal and so accessible. And also the lengths that we go to, right? To kind of romanticize that idea of having your own car, and when they show car commercials being out in the middle of no place instead of sitting in traffic. I mean, it's usually a really traffic-free drive from Fort Collins down to Denver. That's what they need to do, right, for car commercials? Just get people going from Fort Collins down to Denver until inevitably that accident happens. Good. All right. Why else? What do you think? How about why those numbers are so different? Go ahead. Sorry, whoever.
Yeah, no worries. I think let's see if this works. There's a large cultural aspect to it too. Like when you're a 16-year-old, you get a lot of freedom when you get a car, you know. That's kind of everything. You can drive wherever, go to parties, do all that stuff. And, you know, I grew up in a rural area, so that's basically essential. You couldn't live without a car, the way that system's already set up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from Illinois and spent a lot of time on the border by Wisconsin and Iowa. And I would say, yeah, if you're in a rural location, driving around country roads is a lot of what people spend doing. And yeah, again, distance, right? I mean, obviously, the Netherlands is a much smaller place. And they've been building biking infrastructure for a long time, right? So that just makes it easier for people to do that behavior as well. And I don't know, what's your experience in Fort Collins with biking? I mean, has it been positive? Has it been negative? Is there, especially compared to your hometown? My hometown, when I was a kid, everybody had a bike. And I think I've mentioned this before, but the last time I went there in the summertime, it was like 2 or 3 days and I didn't see like nobody on a bike, not kids, anything like that. So not even bike lanes in Freeport, Illinois. Much different, obviously, in Fort Collins. What do you think?
I was going to make a point like with Sam and Rebecca, piggybacking off of that. I think a lot of Americans don't have a choice because like the invention of the car tied into our time period where we started like urbanizing and like making suburbs and like developing our infrastructure and like developing our cities happened at the same time that we were developing technology. Whereas like all over the rest of the world, they did not have that opportunity to like create their infrastructure that they're going to live on at the same time like, that we got to. So I think that like the invention of the car as well as like urbanization has like a really big role in that. Like car companies at that time wanted that to happen and like we designed our whole world around that.
Yeah, good contribution. And it's really interesting to see what a short amount of time in history, like what a short period that happened in. Like it only took about 14 years to dismantle public transportation in this country from very efficient and very effective. And Olivia, might I say, it looks like you're on America's Most Wanted, where somebody gives like a testimony of something and you can't quite see their face because it's all blocked out. I'm just gonna assume that's you and not somebody taking your place saying that
it is me, but yeah.
I'm just kidding. Awesome. All right, great. Why else do you like riding here versus your home? Is it better? Is it not as efficient? What's your experience around campus? What do you think?
At least I feel something that's good about campus is, I guess I said my bike were only 10%, but I feel like that's because I don't have a car here, but I'm more walking a lot because I don't need to go far. Like if I'm going to class, I feel like it's almost more of a hassle to bike, but still I'm not taking like normal transportation. But I feel like back like where I'm from, I'm also from like the Illinois, Chicago-ish area suburbs. And I know there's definitely, we always joke, even when we were in middle school, we always say like, oh, they're the bike gangs that are like the group, like the pack of middle schoolers on a bike. But definitely like as soon as you turn the age where you take driver's ed and then end up being able to drive, you do that. And like even for us, our high school, like a requirement to graduate is taking driver's ed. So like regardless of if you're actually going to drive, you still have that like kind of forced upon you, I guess.
Right. My son Storm is taking that right now, and they're still teaching it sort of like they did when I was in school. They've got some like serious scare tactic videos, and he's like, why was it so violent? They said somebody's hand was missing, and I was like, well, man, the #1 leading cause of death for I think between 16 and 22 or 24 is automobile accidents. I was like, so you know. I'm not usually a scare tactic guy. Yeah, the other thing you said, Sarah, that was interesting is the bike gang thing, or at least just large packs of kids like riding bikes. And that was common. And I just growing up again saw it. And then when I was back, just haven't seen it the last several years. And I don't know, maybe kids aren't biking as much, but it's really a first kind of pathway to freedom. And see how that's, again, all of this the reason we're looking at this through a sociological lens is because our behavior, no matter what that is, right? Whether we're talking about biking growing up, or whether we're talking about, because some people biked so much more maybe here than others because they're from outside of the United States, and that's the primary mode of transportation. So again, sociology matters a whole lot for this. What do you think? Fort Collins and CSU campus, very bike friendly, even more than Denver. Yeah, I mean, really, this town does seem to go out of its way, and campus too, to, you know, to have an infrastructure. I don't think that means it's always safe, right? I think everybody here has experienced either being on a bike and sort of blowing off the signs, or just kind of going with the pack, and or being in a car and you know, having to experience that. So it's difficult, but there's a lot of infrastructure for sure. Who else has a couple places that maybe suburbs because of distance? Would you say Fort Collins is more bike friendly than where you're from? Less, or whether you do more walking in Fort Collins? I guess we didn't used to have a bus system too, but now we have for the last several years.
I'm from
I
northern
live,
San Diego area, and I'd have to take the freeway like anywhere I go. It was like such a hassle, and I didn't have a bike there. So like here, everything is so central. I can bike to the grocery store, I can bike to
Right.
class, and like to downtown, it's like all 10 minutes away.
Yeah, and really, I mean, it's intentional, right? I mean, some communities are very intentional about being multimodal with their forms of transportation. And again, so when we're talking about biodiversity, or whether we're talking about transportation, something that I think holds true across the board is, and this is with people too, the more diverse, the better something functions, okay? Like if you start taking pieces out or putting like pesticides into rivers and you lose certain segments of that chain, you take that out, that has drastic effects. The same is true with human beings in society. So the more diverse something is, the better it functions. The more diverse your opportunities are for transportation, the better that works for people, right? So again, whether we're applying that sort of in sociological terms about human beings, and using diversity as a metaphor, whether we're talking about transportation or a river, you know, more diverse, more better for sure. All right, good. Well, let's look at anybody else, and then I'll move on.
I have one. It's more of like a logistics thing, I guess. But I'm from Chicago, and like 2 summers ago, I was biking a lot around the city to get to and from work. And it was more just like I'd get somewhere, and then I didn't have anywhere to like lock up my bike. So I have to like bring it up the stairs at work and stuff. So that kind of like made me not want to ride my bike as much.
Yeah, infrastructure, absolutely. Like again, if you want people to bike, you need to have some type of infrastructure for that to happen. That includes where you're going to put your bike. Absolutely. Like I found myself in Loveland because, okay, so I lived in Loveland for several years because that was like the first place we could afford a house. And I think it had a 1 in front of it. Like nowadays, I don't think you can buy a house in Fort Collins without a 3 or 4 in front of it. But consistently, the boys and I were having to take our bikes into stores and like almost like in by the shopping carts. Not almost, a lot of the times, because it was just the infrastructure was not there. So yeah, absolutely. And of course, over time, that's how we can see, again with sociology, either you're encouraged to do something or you're discouraged. I had a student years ago that was from Australia, and she was like, I don't even get when I moved here, like why everybody's garbage here was bigger than the recycling. Because for a long time it was. And if we look at perception and how people view things, if you always see bigger trash, then you're going to trash more. And if you kind of flip that and you have bigger recycling and that becomes the norm and the expectation, then people recycle more. So really it's interesting. And that's one of the things that we look at all semester long, how our behavior is one thing, like what we want to do as people. I do what I want, right? I mean, I'm an only child. Leo, come on. Professor, I do what I want every single day. Nah, actually, a lot of our choices are like constrained or encouraged by society. And so that's one of those things, you know, is there even some place for your bike? Good. Anybody else? Okay. Awesome. So let me see here. Next question from the other day. What repercussion? I know that one question that I just asked about biking is still open till tonight, but I just wanted to touch upon that. What repercussion of climate change are you most concerned about? So this is a pretty big list. I don't think I read this list yet, did I? No? Good. I hope not anyway. So this is what we're concerned about, and then there's one more about kind of what we want to learn, and then we'll wrap up. But good discussion, everybody. I appreciate that. All right. What repercussion are you most concerned about? Loss of biodiversity, longer lasting times of immense heat all over the globe. Yeah. You really get a sense, and yes, we know weather comes in, and that's patterns, and then climate is over time, but you start to get to see in a shorter amount of time just how erratic those patterns are. And at first they happen every 100 years, and then they start to happen every 50 years, and then they're happening multiple times. And so frequency and things like that, rates of increase, important things when we're talking about, when we're looking at those types of statistics and what that looks like and how erratic that is becoming as I look outside. Decrease of biodiversity, loss of habitat, a lot of that, species dying, yeah. Probably clean and available water supplies, yep. Decrease in biodiversity, ocean levels rising, effects on the ocean, most concern for the temperature, not being sustainable future, mass loss of planet species, rising sea levels, ecosystems collapsing, forest fires. So speaking of forest fires, trying to contain what they could at the Cameron Peak fire, and then having it be, I think was 6,000 acres, and then it jumped to 60 or 90 or something, winds. And I was listening and reading just today, and so I'm not sure where they're at with that. One thing I read said that probably this moisture isn't going to be all that impactful because the trees have been so dry, and that's right. And if you go back to pine beetles, right, which is over 100,000 acres, right? If you go to the pine beetle, the whole idea with this is that, like I said before, it's a chain. So one thing leads to another, right? If you push back when the birds have their babies, they're not coming out to hunt. Suddenly pine beetles get an extra, go around every summer. Those forests get completely dead and dry. And if you've looked at the way, just even up to Winter Park, really there's so many areas that have so many old dead trees for so long that one spark is going to now burn more and more and more. And I think 100K, that means that we are at like the High Park fire, excuse me, from several years back. So yeah, something that's happening more frequently, to be sure. All right, drought. The death of inner city folks due to rising heat and inadequate cooling systems. Yeah, absolutely. Most concerned about rising sea levels, major coastal cities. Good. All right, so obviously this semester, a lot of concerns and a lot of time for us to be able to look at those. Now that we know the problems, let's jump in, with the second chapter on greenhouse gases, and let's point our eyes not just towards the assignment, but towards more solution-based thinking right now as we see. And again, here's that piece that we'll continue to come back to. The more proactive we are ahead of time about taking care of things, and that might be clearing forest areas that need to be cleared and things that are controversial on many sides to folks, but getting that money put into it instead of just having it disappear means you're more prepared for it. And right now has been a difficult situation, not only with funds and people, coming to help, but also with the location of some of these things. I mean, this is some serious territory where they're trying to get a hold of it for sure. All right. Let me see here. Last question of the day. What is one thing you would like to learn more about this semester? Good. So I'll read quite a few of these out loud. And then I'll take a look at them and I'll go over these lists. And as I go over these lists this semester, I will make sure that that I'm taking some of these ideas and integrating them into the class. And if you really, really want to learn about something and we don't seem to be getting to it, let me know. But I'm going to try and tailor some of the class towards that and towards you. Ways we can help on local and global scale. Meat industry. Yep. A variety of other issues So yep, let's find some specific ones. Again, biodiversity loss is a big one identified by this class this semester. More about how to effectively recycle, if at all. Absolutely, we will talk about that. And we'll also talk about scenarios in which recycling is not the best option. And so I think that I've run into that over the years, and we need to talk about, maybe the assumption that in some cases that's not a better option. Some cases it absolutely is. How do we get people to recycle more efficiently? And I think a lot of people, well, you don't have to raise your hand, but a lot of people are like, why isn't glass more easy to recycle? And I would think too, because that you can melt down glass into sand and burn away food matter, I would think it would be much easier than it is right there. So looking into some of these industries and why those industries aren't as efficient as they could be, and then how we could, or what we could do with that, again, important as well. Let me see, is there a way to reverse damage done on Earth? What can I do to educate climate change deniers? That's a great question. And it's the same thing with talking about dismantling racism. And that is that how we communicate and how we present our message becomes very, very, very important. It's not just what we're saying that we communicate to people about the environment, but how we're saying it. And I would suggest that there are a lot of ways to go about it. Some, like if I were to look at 20 years ago me, some really passionate and not very effective, right? And then some that aren't very passionate on the other scale, and doesn't get it done sort of either. So what's a good way to communicate with people, particularly people that just, straight up deny climate change? Yeah, good. I like that one. And I think we should talk about that for sure, because persuasive communications and how we reach people most effectively, I think that's something that we want to look at, especially if we're going to try and do something about it, which is a lot of what these answers are about. Environmental racism, absolutely, we're going to talk about that in detail. What we can do to make a difference within our environment, yes. And I think, where do we find the maximum benefits of the behavior that we can put into it, right? So not trying to do something on such a huge level that we get shut down time and time again, but what's the most impact that you can make for the behavior and time and effort that you want to put into it? Yeah, that is different for everybody, and I think an interesting and unique way to approach that. Specific major effects humans have on the planet. Sure, small solutions that will make a big difference. Composting, gardening techniques to be self-sufficient. Yeah, one thing I can talk about for a long time, and we will in here, we have a food waste paper, is food. Composting, gardening, how to bring species and biodiversity and increase that in a small or a given territory exponentially. Definitely as well. Love that one. Differing policies and social views related to the environment in foreign countries compared to those in the United States. Yep, and I'll let that be sort of the last one that we have here. All right, hold on, let me look at the side here. Can't submit a question, the next Top Hat question. The question, okay, I'll go into Top Hat when we're done with class, and let me just make sure that everything's set right. And remember this, here's our guiding principle all semester long with Top Hat and this class. Don't stress out, right? If you can't submit something or it was wrong on my end when I posted it, I'm more interested that we use this thing in a way that helps, but not in a way that gets us stressed out. So I'll go in and check and make sure that people can answer it. If it comes up unanswered, I'll also take a look at that. But if you've clicked in, don't stress. We have people at Top Hat that do my bidding. They do our bidding, kind of in an evil Mr. Burns kind of a way. So anyway, or in just a way that would help you. Not at all evil, maybe. All right. So we'll figure it out together. So any questions before next class period, which is Thursday again? So anything, I get to chapter 2. Tomorrow you'll see chapter 2 lecture. At least the first section should be up there. I am going to keep running outside and every hour to check on the garden and keep the generators going and make sure the heaters are going. And so I have a long night. I pulled an all-nighter pretty much last night, and I'm going to pull an all-nighter tonight until the precipitation is done tomorrow, and then I will at least get some time to rest. But anything else, everybody? Anything? No? All right, do me. Oh, all right. I'm not. Should I do it to you? No, I'll let you in on the secret. All right, come closer. Raise your hand or wave a hand if you know what getting rickrolled is. Okay. So, and I'm okay with this, that like A, my kids don't share some things with me, and B, when I learn, it's not 2008 anymore, but check it out. So like I learned about that because I clicked on something, and of course it was like new evidence in Carol Baskin Tiger King case. I clicked, and then it was like, never gonna get you, right? So okay, so good. So my 15-year-old hears that in the basement, and he's like, dude, you just got rickrolled. And I'm like, wait, what? And he's like, all right, let's sit down and talk about it. So then I recorded, wait, was that for this class? No, I can't remember. Wait, did I rickroll this class? Well, anyway, it might be out there in a lecture somewhere, so watch yourself, people. Watch yourself, people. You've got to be on your toes like it's 2010, or maybe even more on your toes. All right, so there's my pop culture lack of knowledge for the day. Everybody have a wonderful afternoon. Stay warm. I'm making chili tonight. If you're someplace besides the sub-zero, subarctic Colorado for some reason, and you're experiencing fantastic warm weather, be good people and do good things. Thanks, everybody. Take care.